All right, so thank you for checking out this video of what to expect during option period, okay? When you get your contract accepted and it is executed, which means signed by both parties and dated for the date that happened, it becomes an executed contract, and now you are in option period. So I want to give you the things that you should anticipate from this point moving forward, and that is the first couple things that are super important are making sure the option check that you agreed to, which is the amount of money, reserving the amount of time of option period, the number of days of option period, you got to get the option check to the seller or the seller's agent within 3 days. Now, you can write that check as a personal check made out to the seller, and then your agent can deliver that for you, but those are the two people that it should go to, one or the other, no one else, okay? The other one is the earnest money. It needs to be made out. It needs to be a certified bank check, okay? So if you go to your bank and you say, I need a check for purchasing a home that's made out to title, if you just kind of say that to your bank, they'll get you what you need, but ultimately you need a certified check that takes the money from your account, puts it on that piece of paper, and that piece of paper is now worth that amount of money. You take it over, which is different than your personal check, okay, because that's not been withdrawn from your account or verified until that person goes to their own bank to cash. But that certified check then has to be made out to the title company, and the title company is the one that's agreed to on the contract, so be sure you ask the agent about what is the name of the title company, and then it should be delivered to title. Now, your agent can help you make that happen, but that also has to happen within 3 days. The thing is, the question that I get is, well, what if we don't? Well, that's not a place you want to be, but here's what happens. If you don't actually get your option check delivered within the 3 days, and therefore you have a receipt that it's been done in that certain amount of time, you can forfeit your option period, which means you don't get your option period. That's what the worst case could be. And so you are committing yourself to even buying the house without having the ability to have it vetted properly. Now, have I seen it where the option check did not get delivered in time? Yes. But both parties worked it out just because of circumstances, and it ended up being okay, but it's not ideal. You want to make sure you knock those out and get them turned in, because it can't put you in breach of contract. Same thing with the earnest money. Huge. You want to make sure you get that earnest money in. Option period is negotiable. I mean, I've seen it go as much as 20 days for a single option period. It can go certainly longer depending on the house or maybe the condition of the home or the circumstances you bought it under, but I've also seen as little as 5 and even 3 days, depending on how clean that house might be. We want to move quickly for the inspection portion of the option, because the quicker we get an inspector on that home, the quicker we find out if we need any other specific inspections, whether we need a roofer to come out, HVAC repair, anything, electricians, plumbers. If the initial inspection reveals information that we need to have taken care of or looked at further, we need to do it as quickly as possible so we have the remainder of that option period to get those things done. Because it requires scheduling, and you're at the mercy of those service industry's schedule. So that's why we want to be as quick as possible during that option period. So that brings us to inspections. Inspections this is going to be one of those out-of-pocket expenses, okay? So your option check, up to this point, your option check is an out-of-pocket expense, okay? That is non-refundable. If you don't follow through on the contract, you don't get the money back. That is the seller's money to go have fun with, do whatever they want. If you do follow through on the contract, we can put it into the contract that option money is applied to your closing costs, but it is money out of your bank. So is the inspection, okay? The inspection that you pay for, depending on the size of the house, depending on the amenities, does it have a pool, how big is it, what are the other things that the inspector's looking at, can increase the amount of that inspection, but somewhere in the $400 to $500 base price range, and then certainly move up from there, is what you should anticipate paying out of pocket for that inspection. Now, if the general inspector finds that there's an issue with your house that you're looking to buy, and we need to have it further evaluated by an electrician, well, electricians charge a service fee. That's on the buyer during option period to pay for. So we've got the inspections, we've got with the general inspection, maybe we've done some electrical, maybe we've got the roofer out there to kind of give us a deeper evaluation of the roof. Does it need replacing, repairs? We got all that. What do we do with the information now? Well, we sit down, we come up with a plan of what on that list now matters most to us, and asking the seller to either have it repaired in a certain amount of time by certain contractors or whatever, or licensed technicians depending on the issues. But the other thing is, we could also come up with a monetary equivalent to the work, okay? Most of the time, I'll be completely honest with you, people throw out an arbitrary number when it comes to what's called a seller concession, or concessions in lieu of repairs during the option period. They just make up numbers, just to be completely honest. And so sometimes, depending on if you have time, you can vet and find out actual receipts for the work, which might save you several $100s or thousands of dollars, depending on how much is needed. But at the same time, sometimes it's just a lot easier. And it really depends on the seller as to what the seller is capable of doing as, say, a handy person, or maybe they have resources where they can get things done cheaper, so they'd rather just give them the checklist of things to do, and they'll get that done, and it'll save them money. Whereas some sellers just don't have that access or ability, and they say, well, would you take a cash equivalent instead? And then you negotiate that either from the price or otherwise. So that's where the negotiations come, and that's what you do with your inspection. So the real goal here is either one, verify that the house is going to be just fine. It gives you peace of mind moving forward. It's good money spent to know that you have a house that's okay. Or you find out things that are wrong with the house that we can ask the seller to compensate for or have done. And so you're going to get your money back potentially on what you've spent during the option period just by having that happen. Or you find out that there are things going on with the house that make you want to run far, far away. All right, and that can happen, and we just don't know until we get you an option. So that's why it's a really good idea to have that option period and really take advantage of the inspections. So it might be the case that while you're having the home inspected, you uncover some things that just need further evaluation, and you don't have enough time in the option period to get it done. So the question you might ask yourself is, well, what if we don't have enough time to get all this done? Well, we can go back to the seller and say, because of this, we are asking for an extension of option period. And that is something that absolutely can happen. An example would be, maybe you've got a roof that's got some issues, and a lot of times roofers will not get on a roof depending on the weather, okay? And so they'll have to wait till the weather's right. Well, maybe it's been pouring rain for the last 2 days of your option period, and we just can't get a roofer out there in time. So it wouldn't be unreasonable for us to go to the seller and say, hey, please let us extend option period beyond a certain number of days so that we can have a roofer come out and just check it out and make sure that everything is okay. That's definitely something I've seen. Sometimes an option period will extend because of, well, frankly, a seller might not be reachable. That's one I've seen where we can't even get the seller to respond because of where they are, maybe bad service connection, whatever. And so we have to extend just so we can make sure we're communicating properly what we're trying to make happen during option period. And sometimes it just flat out comes down to the repairs, okay? Maybe there are extensive repairs that are needed, and it takes the seller some time to find out the value or the costs of those repairs, and they need to get certain companies out to help find that information out. And they need time from the buyer to extend that option period to make sure that they work everything out. So that's some examples as to why you might extend option period. Personally, on the home that we bought, we extended option period twice. So we were actually an option for 21 days on our home, simply because of the things that we were uncovering as we were getting into it. And fortunately, we worked it all out. They did some extensive repairs before we bought the home, but it just required a little bit more time and patience, so not a problem. But if we do extend option period, just know that that very well can push out your closing dates, because we don't get to order appraisal, which is going to be in the next video, until after option period, until we've agreed on everything and we know we're moving forward, okay? And so that can push that out because appraisals take time, and therefore it's going to take you a little bit more time to close if you end up having to push that out. Another question I get about the option period is, at what point can you walk away? And the answer is, at any point during the option period, if you've turned in your option check and you've done all that on time, then you have reserved the right for that given amount of time in the contract to walk away. Why? Could you walk away for any stinking reason? It could be personal, it could have nothing to do with the home, it could be your own life, maybe it is the home, it doesn't matter, you can walk away. But let's say we get to the very end, we've got the information, now we're negotiating. So what happens then? Well, we come to terms. That's what we hope to do. We hope to come to terms with the seller, and we hope to figure out that, you know, something works for them and the buyer, and we're working together to get it all done, and we agree. So we come to terms on what we're going to have the seller repair and or replacement value for the repairs, and so we go with money instead. And so the contract that we're going to use is called the amendment to contract concerning the property. So it's really a contract. People call it a repair amendment, but it's just an amendment. And that amendment gives you all kinds of different boxes you can check. Maybe what we agreed on was to lower the price to compensate for the repairs. So rather than the seller fixing it, they just say, well, would you take less for the house? That's one option. We can actually list in there a list of repairs, and then the other thing to think about on that is if you need an electrician, we want to put in there that this repair needs to be done by a licensed electrician, okay? And that way we know that it's being done properly, not just some handyman work, but also the lenders like to see that certain types of work are done by a qualified person. That's something to think about. There might be things to think about that are lender required repairs, because sometimes a VA loan might have extra requirements that other loans might not, that have to be satisfied before the home can close. And so those are things we can list in there. And I will tell you that the section on the contract that allows you to put the repairs in, it's not very big. It's not uncommon to add an addition to that paragraph spot that allows you to put more on the list to get things handled. But as far as getting your option period negotiated, that is the process. You have to fund your option period through the option check. You have to call out your inspectors. You have to evaluate the information. What are some of the top pieces on this report that are most important to you? And then, depending on my experience, I might, have some educational pieces for the buyer to say, here's what you should know about this or that based on my experience. But at the same time, it's to put that together, present to the seller, negotiate, come to terms, put in the amendment, and agree. When we get to that point, we can move on. And then we can go beyond option period, which leads us into appraisals. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end of the video. And remember, if there's anything in the world I can do for you, just be sure to reach me. You can always leave a comment below or hit me up with the email or phone number listed in the description below. And be sure to like and subscribe, and that way you'll be notified when other videos come out in the future.